At the very same time that America refused to give the Negro any land, through an act of Congress, government was giving away millions of acres of land in the West and the Midwest, which meant that it was willing to undergird its white peasants from Europe with an economic floor. But not only did they give the land, interest rates in order that they could mechanize their farms. Not only that, today many of these people are receiving millions of dollars in federal subsidies not to farm, and they are the very people telling the black man that he ought to lift himself by his own bootstraps. And this is what we are faced with, and this is a reality. Now, when we come to Washington in this campaign, we are coming to get our check.
Okay, bring it in.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Talk Spicy. I'm Coach Gene Clemens. Thank you for joining me wherever you are joining me. Rate the show, comment, agree, disagree, but whatever you do, keep it spicy. 5-star ratings are appreciated. If you're joining me via the YouTube channel, make sure that you subscribe to the channel. We would really appreciate it. If you're joining me on Facebook, thank you for joining me. If you're joining me on Twitter, have always appreciated you guys and what you've brought to the table in supporting what it is that I'm trying to do here on this platform. It is Martin Luther King Day, and one of the things that I love is not to really get into the Martin Luther King that many people have turned him into, but to appreciate the Martin Luther King that I grew to understand as I got older. See, a lot of people that I know, they don't rock with Martin Luther King. A lot of people that I know think that Martin Luther King was a sellout. And they believe that based off of a lot, in my opinion, they believe that because of how whitewashed Martin Luther King has become, because the only thing we see is his speeches and his quotes being weaponized as reasons to not fight, as reasons to not rebel, as reasons to not stand up for who we are and what we believe in as Black people. But I'll have you know that speech or that quote, what I played at the beginning of this, is the way in which that I look at Dr. King and say there was something bigger coming, and that's why they got him out of here. That's why they got Dr. King out of here. Political rant. This is just an understanding of a man who gave his life for a cause, and a man who gave his life for a cause and knew that it would take his life in order to be able to see that cause come to fruition. And so for us to still be sitting here in 2022 having some of the same talks and the same issues that Dr. King was having when he was coming around, it tells you everything we need to know about where we are as a society and where we still need to go. In a smaller microcosm, a lot of that has to do with how we look at other people, and more specifically, how we look through the prism of sports, because that's where I tend to land. A lot of it is through the prism of sports and entertainment and culture, and that's where I tend to put myself at. By the way, shout out Say Less Sports Tees on the Unapologetically Black t-shirt. If you are interested in ordering an Unapologetically Black t-shirt, you can do so. Say Less Sports Tees.com. Say Less Sports.com. And you can go and order an Unapologetically Black t-shirt from there as I knock over my my ring light that's over here lighting this dark skin. I want to give a shout out to my brother, Dr. Martin Luther King. Go Mob forever. But I look at things through the prism of sports and entertainment and the culture. And when I do, it never ceases to amaze me how we seem to have two different ways in which to view things when it comes to our players, when it comes to our coaches, when it comes to our culture. Everything seems to be viewed through different lenses. It was on display once again this weekend during the playoffs. And I know we still have another game to go. And it's going to play out in this game as well, by the way. But it always seems to come to fruition through the prism of sports and how things are perceived. What do you mean, Coach? Well, here's what I mean. These retired quarterbacks who are on television because they are either legends or who have a voice because people look at them as luminaries of the game, have been allowed to discredit and devalue black quarterbacks in this league for as long as I can remember, while simultaneously giving white quarterbacks a pass. And I want to do this right now. I want to apologize to all of the young white quarterbacks out there, because it is because of these people that it forces me and it forces people like me to point out your flaws that I would rather not point out until you've had an opportunity to become a more seasoned veteran. I believe that every quarterback needs an opportunity to season. Does it mean that they can't be good right away? Absolutely not. It doesn't mean that at all. It doesn't mean that they can't be successful right away. What it means that some of them may actually need more time than others in order to be good. That's all. It's not that they can't be good. It's just that they may need a little bit more time to be great. So down in Jacksonville, Trevor Lawrence needs more time. It's an interesting thing because nobody sat back and said, well, Trevor Lawrence can't be a starting quarterback in this league. Because how stupid would that be to make a decision on a quarterback and whether he can and cannot play after his first year in the league with a coach who is not experienced in the NFL? We wouldn't do that. Why? Because it doesn't make any sense. Zach Wilson had a terrible season. Nobody's talking about, we've seen enough of Zach Wilson, he's not going to be the guy. Nobody's saying that because we know that one season in the league does not make someone good or bad. We understand that it's going to take more than one season to evaluate somebody. Nobody's talking about. So we understand these things. We realize that that's what happens, and yet everybody's willing to sit back and wait and evaluate. You know why? Because Zach Wilson has a coach who's never been a head coach in the league, and he's a rookie. He's trying to figure it out. Mac Jones just had an absolutely abysmal playoff game. His team got waxed. He did nothing to help the cause. He hurt the cause more than he did. But people are willing to give him a pass and say, you know, he's young. He's going to get better in this offense. You know, wait for another year or two because the New England Patriots have found their quarterback of the future. That's the narrative that we're going to get That's the narrative we're going to get. That's the narrative we're getting. Oh, well, make the offensive line better. Give him some more weapons and watch what he's able to do as he matures in the league. We hear that. The same type of stuff that was said about Josh Allen when Josh Allen had a horrible first season. The same thing that was said about Baker Mayfield when Baker Mayfield had a terrible second season. The same thing that we say about all of these quarterbacks when we give them passes. Justin Herbert statistically has been great. They're not winning any games, but that's not on Justin Herbert. That was on his old coach, Anthony Lynn. So we had to get Anthony Lynn out of there, right? And then another coach came in, and it's still Justin Herbert putting up these numbers, but happening to turn the ball over in some crucial situations, and they're still not winning. Then we get down to other quarterbacks. Well, Tua. Well, you know, Tua's arm strength just isn't this. And Tua, we don't know if he can process it fast enough or if he's having this. And the only thing that, to me, that is legitimate about Tua is the injury concerns. That's it. Because it's been we haven't had enough time to really know. And then we get to Jalen Hurts. And I told you people last week on Friday that if you came out here and you started doing this ridiculous stuff with Jalen Hurts, that I would make it my personal mission to flame you. And ladies and gentlemen, these retired quarterbacks who have these platforms, they need to watch their mouths. Exhibit A of a gentleman who needs to watch his mouth. Hall of Famer Troy Aikman, who you would listen to talk about Jalen Hurts and think that Jalen Hurts had no business ever playing the position. Ever playing the position. Because why? Because he's not accurate enough, right? He doesn't do enough good things, blah, 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 blah. Troy Aikman, who's in the Hall of Fame, who was a Pro Bowler for 6 years straight because of the team he was on and the weapons that he had around him. One of the best running backs in the history of football, one of the best wide receivers in the history of football, the best offensive line in the history of football. And I know that Washington is out there, but I'll take the Dallas line over the Hogs. I'll take the Dallas line over that Steelers line. And in those 6 seasons where he was rocking, you know how many times he threw over 20 touchdowns? Once. You know what that was? 23. Oh, well, that was a different time. He was in a different type of offense. Well, so is Jalen Hurts, right? Jalen Hurts is in a run-first offense where he many times ends up being the primary ball carrier. And yet, his statistics are infinitely better than Troy Aikman's statistics when Troy Aikman was in his first, second, third, fourth season in the league. Let me run down to you what Troy Aikman's first 3 seasons in the NFL looked like while he was learning the game. This man threw 9 touchdowns and 18 interceptions in 11 games as a rookie, as a 23-year-old rookie, as a 24-year-old second-year guy, because in a lot of your minds, Jalen Hurts is a second-year guy because he got a chance to play at the end of the season, right? Yeah, I know. In his second year, a full 15 games, his record was 7-8, 11 touchdowns, 18 interceptions. In his third season, he played 12 games. He threw 11 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. So in 3 seasons, under the same watchful eye of a staff and in the league and becoming a pro and all of that good stuff, in those 38 games that he played, this man only threw 31 touchdowns. In 38 games, he threw 31 touchdowns. He wasn't mobile, so he wasn't running around. He wasn't putting up 800 and 900 yards on rushing. This was a quarterback only, right? One of the best we've ever seen, correct? So then from there, he must have took off, right? Yeah. He was way better after that. His best season as a pro. 23 touchdowns, 14 interceptions. That's his best season as a pro. It all went downhill from there for him as a quarterback. You know, in his first 2 seasons, 52.9% completion percentage, 56.6 completion percentage. Oh, we don't want to talk about how awful Troy Aikman was when he first came into the league. So much so that I'm sure he got a staff fired until they got in the right guy to help him be a game manager. Because that's all he was a game manager. It's a fraud for him to be in the Hall of Fame. An absolute fraud. Why? Because he's just a nice guy. Because he was the quarterback of a really good team, of an all-time team, right? That's why. That's why he's in the Hall of Fame. But Troy Aikman should not be in the Hall of Fame, ladies and gentlemen, and he should understand the grace that he was allowed to get, that he's not willing to give to these other quarterbacks. Exhibit number 2, the jolly white man, Terry Bradshaw. And before somebody thinks that I'm an angry black man, I used to love Troy Aikman. Michael Irvin was one of my favorite wide receivers of all time. When I was younger, I patterned my game after 88. I didn't realize what I know now because I didn't think Troy Aikman would just come out and start blasting these quarterbacks when they didn't look like Patrick Mahomes. There's only one of those. Go look at the stats all time. There's only one. There's only one Patrick Mahomes. Nobody else has been him. So now we get to Terry Bradshaw, who I've always thought about, he strikes me as the guy that I don't really want to hang out with. The jolly guy. He's funny. He's self-deprecating. But over the last few years, he's become extremely critical. And he's been super critical of many quarterbacks that look like me, but Jalen Hurts as well. Let's just take a look at what the good old Hall of Famer Terry Bradshaw did when he came into the league at 22 years old. This man threw 24 interceptions in 13 games, and only 8 of them he started. He threw 24 interceptions, 6 touchdowns. And yet, somebody thought it would be a smart thing to give him another opportunity to be a quarterback. So then the next year he came back, he did much better. He threw 13 interceptions. He threw 13 touchdowns and 22 interceptions. Infinitely better than his rookie campaign, right? Absolutely. He's so much better. The next year, 12 touchdowns, 12 interceptions. The next year, 10 touchdowns, 15 interceptions, to a point where they said, we got to do something else, but we're still going to keep you around. We're still going to have you in the league. 7 starts. At 26 years old, he threw 7 touchdowns and 8 interceptions. Then at 27 years old, this man had his first season where he did not throw more interceptions than touchdowns. He threw 18 touchdowns and 9 interceptions. You know how he followed up that season? With 10 touchdowns and 9 interceptions. Then he went right back to throwing more interceptions than touchdowns at age 29. His best season came at age 30, where he still threw 20 interceptions. The next year, he threw the most interceptions he had ever thrown in a season, 25. Yet this guy is out here telling you what Jalen Hurts can and cannot be as a 23-year-old, as a 24-year-old, as a young quarterback in the league in his first full season, whose statistics are infinitely better than what Terry Bradshaw ever put up. Do you know that Terry Bradshaw's career completion percentage is 51.9%? Why are we listening to Terry Bradshaw tell us what a quarterback should and should not be? Why are we allowing him to be the voice? And last but not least, Joe Theismann, who came out on Twitter and just decided he was going to let it be known that Jalen Hurts is not a starting quarterback in the NFL. Joe Theismann came into the league at 25 years old. He was already a grown man. And at 25 years old, he didn't have to play. He wasn't asked to be a starter. He was allowed to work his way into playing, learn the game, learn the NFL, learn the league, become a pro. So his first year, he sat. His second year, he sat. No starts. His third year, started 5 games. His fourth year, started 6 games. In this man's first year as a full starter, after 4 years in the league, his first year as a full starter, he's 29 years old. This man completed 47.9% of his passes, 13 touchdowns, and 18 interceptions. His best season wasn't until he was 34 years old, when he threw 29 touchdowns and 11 interceptions. Let me say that one more time. At 29 years old, his first year in the league as a starting quarterback, 5 years into his career, he threw 13 touchdowns and 18 interceptions and did not complete half of his passes. Now, why do I bring up these three quarterbacks in relationship to Jalen Hurts? Number one, because they had the audacity to talk about him not being the answer. And then number two, because they all played in rush-first offenses. They all had running backs and offenses that were predicated on running the ball well for success. Jalen Hurts has an offense that's predicated on running the ball well for success. And unlike those guys, he is also the catalyst for that offense to run well. So when you have, oh, by the way, these guys played for Hall of Fame coaches. These guys played for guys who are going into or maybe already in the Hall of Fame as coaches. Jalen Hurts is playing for a first-year head coach, and many of his assistants don't have a lot of coordinator and to that level experience. They were figuring it out as they went along. He's still figuring it out because he's still young in his career. And yet people left and right on social media and on television are all out here debating whether or not Jalen Hurts is the answer. Yet I have not heard that be said about Matt Jones. I haven't heard it be said about Trevor Lawrence. I haven't heard it be said about Zach Wilson. I haven't heard it be said. What am I missing? Because last time I checked, Jalen Hurts is around the exact same age as those guys. He's been in the league 1 year longer, but he's only ever really been running his team this year in a new offense. So why doesn't he get the grace that others get? So don't tell me when I sit back and I say, hey, there's a difference in the way in which these guys are being evaluated. There's a difference in the way these guys are being covered. And people say, oh, well, you're race baiting. I go, but it's plain as day. These retired QBs better check themselves. And shame on you other guys on television for not checking these dudes when they're not willing to give these guys grace. Stop being hand holders. Stop being shuck and jivers and dancers and actually say the truth. That these guys should be blessed that they're in the positions that they're in, because if they played today, their butts would have been out of there. You would have never heard about Troy Aikman. You would have never heard about Terry Bradshaw. You would have never heard about Joe Theismann. If they played today, they would have never been able to last as long as they were able to last before they kind of sort of got good. Not really good, not actual legitimate Hall of Fame good, before they kind of sort of got good. And I know Joe Theismann's not in the Hall of Fame, but you get what I'm saying. One of the other things that I saw that I just don't understand is how you can champion one coordinator without giving credit or credence to the other ones. I sat back and listened as the world went bonkers over Brian Daboll and what they were able to do to an outmatched Patriots team. And then I sat back and waited. Tampa Bay went out there and did it to a better defense, and nobody said a word about Byron Leftwich. Then the Kansas City Chiefs went out there and looked like they were absolutely toying with the opposition, and nobody said a word. Nobody said a word about their offensive coordinator. Not a single word. Why is that? Nobody said a word. Why? Because people have something against Eric Bieniemy, and people have something against Byron Leftwich. You know what I think it is the more I think about it, it's when they talk, they don't sound like these other guys. They don't make the game harder to understand. So in your mind, they're not advanced level thinkers because they don't make it sound difficult. See, these guys, all of these newfangled guys up in San Francisco and Green Bay and with the Rams that you guys are in love with because they all come off the same tree of word vomit. They all have one thing in common. They all say stuff that appeals and makes your ears ring as if, wow, they're saying something that's really profound. When in reality, they're saying the same thing. The difference is, and the reason why Leftwich and Bieniemy have been able to be so good is because they make it simple. They make it easy to understand. Oh, well, and the fact that they have credit because they've been there, done that. And yet, we don't get anybody boosting them up. Look at them putting their resumes on display tonight. Eric Bieniemy absolutely embarrassed Pittsburgh. They embarrassed the Pittsburgh defense with all pro caliber guys on it. A Pittsburgh defense with the defensive player of the year on it. A Pittsburgh defense with multiple Pro Bowlers across all three levels. They embarrassed them. Nothing. Hey, I'll bang the table for you, Byron Leftwich, because people have been out here telling me how much Kellen Moore should be a head coach. And I just watched that offense look disjointed and discombobulated and uncoordinated. And people wanted to blame the head coach. And I said, well, wait a minute. He doesn't call the plays. He doesn't put the scheme together. Put the blame on the offensive coordinator. No, because they like the offensive coordinator. Because he's the new wave, right? Just because you call plays doesn't mean you're coordinating. Any coach can tell you that. There's a difference between coordinating a game plan and a scheme and calling plays. The Dallas Cowboys went into that game with the wrong scheme. They've been running it down people's throats and then using that to be able to unleash this high-powered offense. And they gave, if you're not going to give Zeke the ball because you think Zeke's washed, give Tony Pollard the ball. Neither one of them got enough carries to make it seem like you should know what you're doing. And yet everybody's telling me that Kellen Moore is a head coach. I'll say this. If we're going to give credit, if we're going to champion one coordinator, let's champion all of the coordinators who do well. Brian Daboll has earned the right to be a head coach, but so has Byron Leftwich. And neither one of them have earned that right more. Neither one of them earned that right more than that guy up in Kansas City. He should have been a head coach 3 years ago. Instead, Eric Bieniemy just continues to stand there in the paint, do his job, wait his turn. And the sad part is he might wait for a turn that never comes, or he might get a turn that's cut short like David Culley and like Brian Flores was done, or like Steve Wilkes was done, or countless other black coordinators that we've seen get head coaching jobs and be gone in 1 to 2 years when their white counterparts get 3 to 4 years to get it right. So if you tell me that the trend is changing and all quarterbacks are going to get less time to prove themselves, I'm willing to listen. But I'd also like to see my brothers get their opportunity. It's only right. We're coming, NFL, and we're coming for our check. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Talk Spicy. I'm Coach Gene Clemens. We do this thing Monday through Friday. Rate the show, comment, agree, disagree, but whatever you do, keep it spicy. 5-star ratings are appreciated. If you're joining me on the YouTube channel, you know what to do. Like and subscribe. Make sure you check out the Gene Therapy podcast. Make sure you check out the Zebra Stripes podcast. Both of those labors of love. We appreciate y'all. Until next time, peace.